Today, we'll uncover the story of the elusive female serial killer who lived in London in 1888. We'll delve into the dark streets of Whitechapel, where murders remain unsolved to this day. Back in 1888, London's heart was bleeding. Fear, not hope, roamed those foggy cobblestone streets. A shadow lurking in the mist was about to become one of history's greatest nightmares. This was Whitechapel, one of the poorest, most chaotic, and darkest parts of London. People walked cautiously even during the day, but at night, they prayed just to survive. Empty bottles, garbage, rats on the sidewalks, occasional drunken shouts, fights between jobless men on the corners, flickering gas lamps trembling through coal smoke. Life in Whitechapel was harsh. At night, women walked these streets trying to survive. Night was their time to earn money, but also possibly the most dangerous time to die. Most of Whitechapel's residents lived barely above starvation. But what nobody expected was that a hunter would start roaming silently through this labyrinth of alleys. While you subscribe to this mysterious channel, let's dive deep into the archives and start unraveling the case. He was a shadow unseen in the dark, but on that night, when the first blood was spilled, London changed forever. Whitechapel's narrow streets were like a confusing maze. Even those born and raised there could lose their way at midnight. That's why even police officers wouldn't enter alone. But he knew these streets like a hunter. Some said he was a former sailor. Others thought he worked as a butcher. Some believed he was educated, maybe even a doctor. But everyone agreed on one thing. This man knew exactly how to kill a woman. This was the start of one of the darkest legends in modern history. Back then, nobody knew, but those narrow London streets would be stained by the signature of a killer called Jack the Ripper. Imagine a foggy London night. You hold a weak gas lamp, every shadow makes you nervous. Your steps quicken, but so do the footsteps behind you. Your heart climbs to your throat. You turn the corner and see just a silhouette in the dark. A hat pulled low over the face, and in his hand, a knife shining under the moonlight. On the last day of August, as London said goodbye to summer, it met an unexpected nightmare. That night would be remembered as the night the city's most infamous serial killer spilled his first blood. Marian Nichols, known by most as Polly, was 43 years old, a mother of 5, but life had pushed her into London's darkest corners. Poverty, alcohol, nights spent on the streets. Like thousands of women in Whitechapel, her fate was harsh. That night, Polly didn't expect anything different. She wore a worn-out black dress, an old hat on her head, and had just a few pennies in her pocket. As midnight approached, she walked the foggy streets of London, hoping to find a client. Around 1:20 a.m., Polly met a friend on Osborne Street. She told her she was out trying to earn a few coins. "If I find a client, I can get through the night," she said, trying to smile. But the tiredness in her eyes was clear. The woman across knew this was just a fight for survival. After that moment, Polly's story fell silent, because the last witness who saw her heard nothing else. No scream, no call for help. Polly entered Bucks Row, a narrow street in one of Whitechapel's most isolated areas. It was quiet. Only a drunken man singing somewhere far away could be heard. Maybe Polly thought it was a client. Maybe that's why she wasn't scared. But a few minutes later, an irreversible mark would be left on Whitechapel's streets. At around 3:40 a.m., Charles Cross, a cab driver, was passing Bucks Row on his way to work. He held a small oil lamp. He noticed someone lying in the shadows on the sidewalk. At first, he thought it was a drunk. But when he got closer, he saw the woman wasn't breathing. He put his hand on her face. Cold. The police were called. The first officer to arrive was John Neal. The scene he saw in the flickering gaslight was unlike anything he'd seen before. Polly's throat was deeply cut, not just a simple slash, but almost completely severed. Her abdomen was opened, her internal organs mutilated. This wasn't a crime of passion. It was cold, calculated. At that moment, it became clear. This was no ordinary murder. It was a planned, systematic execution. The police were stunned. Such brutal killings weren't common in street fights. This was done with surgical precision. The killer knew exactly where to strike. That night, fear began in Whitechapel. The news spread fast. A woman found dead in Bucks Row. Throat cut, abdomen torn open. People whispered those words the next day. But no one knew this was only the beginning. Marian Nichols went down in history as the first victim of Jack the Ripper. But the truly terrifying part was that her death was just the start. More was coming, much more. As blood continued to flow in Whitechapel's foggy nights, the London police faced their toughest case ever. Scotland Yard detectives threw everything they had into catching the monster behind the murders. But Whitechapel's narrow streets, complex layout, and crowded immigrant population made the investigation nearly impossible. Everyone was a suspect. Everyone suspected everyone else. Just 8 days after Mary's death, another woman was brutally murdered. On the morning of September 8th, the residents of Hanbury Street woke up to screams. Annie Chapman had been seen at 5:30 a.m. in a backyard, with a well-dressed man wearing a hat. A witness said he looked local but couldn't describe his face. At 6 a.m., Annie's body was found. Her throat was cut, abdomen opened, and her womb removed. The organ removal was so precise that police immediately said, "This killer has medical knowledge." By now, everyone knew this wasn't a coincidence. London was facing a serial killer, and because this killer was never caught, the murders gained terrifying speed, and the body count rose. September 30th, 1888, became one of London's most horrific nights. At 1 a.m., Elizabeth Stride, known as Long Liz, was found. She was 44 years old. Her throat was cut once, but her abdomen wasn't mutilated. Police thought someone interrupted the killer, but it seemed the killer wasn't stopped, just in a hurry. Only 45 minutes later, Catherine Eddowes' body was found. Her throat was cut, face mutilated, abdomen opened. Her womb and left kidney were removed. Nearby, on a wall, a mysterious message was written. "The Jews are the men that will not be blamed for nothing." Police immediately erased the message, probably to prevent public panic. But what if it was the killer's signature? No one saw what happened during these two murders, even though they happened close by. Around this time, letters started arriving at the press and police. The "Dear Boss" letter was written in red ink. The killer signed himself for the first time as Jack the Ripper. The "Saucy Jackie" postcard referenced the double murders and claimed Elizabeth Stride's unfinished business. The "From Hell" letter came with a small box containing a human kidney. The letter said, "I took this from one of my victims." The kidney was believed to belong to Catherine Eddowes. These letters terrified Londoners. The killer wasn't just murdering anymore, he was mocking, taunting. On November 9, 1888, residents of Miller's Court noticed an eerie silence. Mary Jane Kelly, 25 years old, the youngest victim, was found in her bed at home, but "found" doesn't do it justice. Her body was unrecognizable. Organs removed, face mutilated, the entire room soaked in blood. The killer must have stayed inside for a long time. This was Jack's most brutal murder. Police knocked on every door near the crime scenes. Faces, hands, clothes of suspicious people were examined, but no clues led to the killer. The murders happened so fast and quietly that every missed second gave Jack the Ripper a new advantage. Detectives stayed awake day and night, yet the murders didn't stop. They continued intermittently. Each new crime increased pressure on the police. People protested on the streets, newspapers screamed, "Why hasn't the police caught him yet?" At that time, forensic science was very limited. Fingerprinting wasn't used yet. DNA was unknown. The killer hid not just in the shadows, but in the system's weaknesses. Witness testimonies contradicted each other. Some said they saw a tall man in a black coat, others described a short man with a hat. No description matched perfectly. The investigation stalled. The murders slowed, then stopped. But that didn't mean the killer was caught. He either left London, moved to another city, or lived unnoticed among us. The case files closed, but the unanswered questions remained like a wound in London's heart. Because these 5 murders were done in similar ways, they're believed to be by the same killer. When the murders ended, only one thing remained: questions. And the answers were even darker. The Jack the Ripper case became one of the most debated criminal mysteries in history. Even after more than a century, the suspect list is still long. Who was this shadow lost among the crowd? The first suspects included Montague John Druitt, a lawyer who drowned himself in the Thames shortly after the murders stopped. Some detectives didn't see that as a coincidence. Then Aaron Kosminski, a Polish-born barber living in Whitechapel, rumored to have mental illness and violence toward women. Some controversial DNA tests linked him to the crimes, but there was no definitive proof. Another intriguing name was Walter Sickert, a famous painter who depicted women's bodies in chilling ways in his artwork. Some researchers suggested his paintings contained clues to the murders, but art historians largely dismissed this theory. And there were even wilder theories, much darker ones. Some claimed the killer was actually a member of the royal family, and the murders were to cover up a scandal. This royal conspiracy theory became popular and entered pop culture. Others said the killer belonged to a secret cult performing rituals in London. The timing of the murders and the victims chosen were linked to ritual calendars. Some researchers even argued that Jack the Ripper wasn't a single person but a group of killers working together. But all these names and theories don't change one thing: the truth remains in darkness. The killer's identity was never confirmed. The case has been open for over a century. And maybe the most disturbing possibility is that no one will ever know who Jack the Ripper really was. Jack the Ripper's name symbolizes not just the murders but the dark fears of an era. And those fears haven't faded for over 100 years. The horror that echoed through London streets in 1888 eventually turned into urban legend. Whitechapel's narrow, dark alleys have become a stage for Jack the Ripper tours. The murder sites still give visitors an eerie feeling. Over time, Jack became more than a killer. He became a brand. His name appears in novels, films, TV series. Since the 1920s, dozens of movies have told his story or taken inspiration from him. From Hitchcock's suspense to today's bloody horror shows, the image of the Ripper always promised the same thing: shadow, blood, and an unknown face. But all those books, films, and theories are trying to fill the same void, the void of truth. Jack the Ripper remains a mystery. Maybe that's why he's never forgotten. Because people love unsolved secrets. If answers ever come, maybe that magic will disappear completely. So, who do you think the killer was? Was this case really unsolvable? Or maybe it's been solved already?